Have you ever just stared at a blank screen and wondered, how do you even start? How do you turn nothing into an app that actually does something? Well, the secret ingredient, the real workhorse, is something called a function. And today, we're going to dive deep into Kotlin functions. We'll go from the absolute basics all the way to the features that make Kotlin so cool. Ready? Let's do this. I mean, it really boils down to this one question, right? How do you tell a machine what to do? You have to give it a set of instructions it can actually follow, and that's what a program is. The fundamental building blocks of any good program? You guessed it, functions. All right, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to write your very first Kotlin program. Super simple. Then we'll get into what functions are all about, the real building blocks. After that, we'll look at how to make them clean and concise, and then, the really cool part, Kotlin's functional superpower. We'll wrap it all up with a practical example, and you'll walk away with a whole new toolkit. Let's go. Okay, first things first. Every single coding journey starts with this one moment, getting something, anything, to actually run without errors. That's our first mission. You know, getting your first program to run is kind of like a rite of passage. And thankfully, in Kotlin, it's pretty painless. You just make a new file, then you create this special function called main. Now, main is super important. Think of it like the main entrance to a building. It's the one place Kotlin knows to start. Everything kicks off from there. You just pop your instructions inside, hit that little green run button, and watch the magic happen.
And there it is. Look at that. This one little line, that's a complete working Kotlin program. It's awesome. The fun keyword, that's just you telling Kotlin, hey, I'm making a function. We call it main, like we just talked about. And inside those curly braces, we're using another function, println, to get our message on the screen. And boom, you've officially written code that runs. It might seem small, but trust me, this is a huge first step.
Okay, so we've seen one in action, but what is a function really? I love this analogy. Think of a function like a recipe. You write it down once, super carefully, with all the ingredients and all the steps. Then you can use that same recipe over and over again to bake a cake, or in our world, to run a specific task whenever you need to. So yeah, that's the key idea. A function is just a named chunk of code that does one specific job. The whole point is to avoid writing one massive, tangled mess of a program. Instead, you break everything down into these small, focused, and, this is the important part, reusable pieces. It's honestly the secret to keeping your code clean and manageable. And just like any good recipe, you need ingredients, right? Functions are exactly the same. We call these ingredients parameters or arguments. And Kotlin gives you some really great options here. You've got your required ones, the flour and eggs, you can't bake without them. Then you have default parameters, which are like, if you don't have vanilla, that's okay, we can skip it. And my favorite, named arguments, which let you be super clear about what you're putting in. It makes your code so much easier to read. You know, a big reason so many developers love Kotlin is because it's just elegant. It's designed to let you do more with less code. It cuts out all the extra boilerplate and noise. So let's take a look at how we can make our own functions a little more sleek and streamlined. Okay, check this out. On the left, you've got a function that's totally fine. It works, no problem. But on the right, that's the Kotlin way. See how if your function just does one simple thing, you can get rid of the curly braces, get rid of the return keyword, and just use an equals sign? It does the exact same thing, but it's so much cleaner and easier to read at a glance. Little things like this are why Kotlin is such a joy to write. All right, basics are covered. Now we get to the good stuff. We're about to talk about the one concept that makes Kotlin a truly modern, incredibly powerful language. Seriously, this is where it all clicks. This right here is the game changer. In a lot of older programming languages, functions are kind of stuck in one place. They're just static blocks of code. But in Kotlin, functions are what we call first-class citizens. And what that means is you can treat a function just like any other value, like a number or a piece of text. You can literally store a function in a variable. You can pass a function into another function. You can even have a function return another function. This changes everything. So if we're going to be passing functions around like this, we need an easy way to create them, right? Like on the spot. That's what a lambda is for. A lambda is just a nameless function, a quick throwaway recipe. The syntax is dead simple. You got your curly braces, the inputs, a little arrow, and then the code you want to run. It's perfect for those little one-off tasks. Okay, so if we can put a function in a variable, we have to tell Kotlin what kind of function we're expecting, right? It's got to know the shape of it. So we start with the ingredients, the input parameters. We put them in parentheses. So this right here, int, is us saying, hey, this variable is going to hold a function that takes one integer as its input. And then, to finish it off, we add an arrow and say what the function gives back, the return type. So now we have the full signature. Int, int. You can literally read that out loud. A function that takes an int and returns an int. We've just created a perfect little blueprint for what kind of function our variable is allowed to hold. Okay, let's put all these pieces together. When you have a function that either takes another function as one of its ingredients, or it returns a brand new function, we call that a higher order function. Remember our recipe analogy? This is like a master chef who doesn't just work with flour and sugar, they work with other people's recipes. It's a whole other level of power and reusability. All right, enough theory. Theory's cool, but let's see this stuff in action. One of the most common things you'll ever do as a programmer is work with lists of data, and this functional style makes it so much nicer. So let's pretend we have this simple list of book titles. And our job is to filter this list and get a new list that only has the books starting with the letter B. And this is where it all comes together. We can use a built-in higher order function called filter. And what do we give it? A lambda. Our little nameless function becomes the rule for filtering. And check out that keyword it. That's just a slick Kotlin shortcut for the current thing in the list we're looking at. So for every single book, this tiny piece of code asks one simple question. Hey, does your first letter equal B? And boom, just like that, it's done. The filter function takes care of everything. It goes through the whole list, applies our rule to every single book, and gives us a brand new list with only the ones that pass the test. Think about it. No complicated loops, no extra variables to keep track of, just one clean, clear line of code that says exactly what it does. Okay, now here's a little pro tip for you. By default, filter is eager. That means it does all the work right away and builds that new list immediately. Which is fine for small lists, but what if you have a list with millions of items? That could be slow. That's where you can use something called a sequence. By making it a sequence, you're telling Kotlin, hey, be lazy about this. Don't actually do the filtering until I absolutely need the final result. For big data sets, this can be a huge performance boost. All right, let's take a breath and just look at what we've put together. We've built up a seriously powerful toolkit here, and it's not just a random collection of features. It's a whole new way of thinking about how you solve problems with code. So, what's in your new Kotlin toolkit? Well, you've got the basics down. You can create and run a program with main. You know how to craft your own reusable functions with fun. You can make them super concise and readable. And most importantly, you've got the superpower, using lambdas and higher order functions. You can now slice and dice lists with ease. You're seriously on your way. I mean, think about it. We went from a blank file and hello world all the way to the core ideas behind modern programming. These tools, these functions, they are the foundation for literally everything you're going to build, from a tiny script to a massive application. You have the tools now. The only question is, what are you going to build?